Okay, guys, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Now, fasten your seatbelts. Here we go. All right, guys, I'm back, and it's Wednesday, September 23rd, and it's 10:22 p.m. Eastern Time. I know I'm getting a very late start today, but, you know, better late than never. All right, guys, well, let's get into the news, and I do have someone to thank here via coffee, Fred Spalding in Houston. So there you go. I wonder if Fred Spalding in Houston knows Heather H. from Houston. Probably not. Anyway, let's get into the news. And let's just, start at the beginning. All right. Nolte 1619 Project fires off new lies to cover up old lies. Now, this is from Breitbart News. This is a story about lying, about the New York Times lying, about 1619 Project founder Nicole Hannah-Jones lying, about CNN, LOL, lying. This is not a story about the old lies, the libels against America from the far left, Times and Hannah-Jones, the appalling, shameless, and provable lie America was founded on slavery in 1619, the countless historical and factual errors that were published even after the Times' own fact-checker raised the alarm. No, this is a story about the new lies the Times, Hannah-Jones, and CNN, LOL, are spreading to cover up the old lies. The new lying began after President Trump rightfully defended this great country against the old lies. The president said at a White House event last week, the left has warped, distorted, and defiled the American story with depictions and with deceptions, falsehoods, and lies. There's no better example than the New York Times totally discredited 1619 Project. This project rewrites American history to teach our children that we were founded on the principle of oppression, not freedom. Critical race theory, the 1619 Project, the crusade against American history is toxic propaganda, ideological poison that, if not removed, will dissolve the civic bonds that tie us together, he added. The president then announced his 1776 commission as an antidote to the lying public schools that have agreed to teach the lies in the 1619 Project to our children. The idea behind the 1776 Commission is to promote patriot education in America's schools and oppose reductionist, partisan, historical narratives. So now that Trump is telling the truth about the 1619 Project's lies, the lying liars are telling new lies to cover up their old lies as a means to attack Trump as a liar. I know, it's convoluted. We never said this country was founded on slavery. They're now screeching in so many words, Trump is a liar. He's lying about black people. Trump is a racist, lying about black people. Let's break it down, shall we? Here's Hannah-Jones and CNN, LOL, teaming up on Friday to tell the new lies. The 1619 Project does not argue that 1776 was not the founding of the country, but what it does argue for is that we have largely treated slavery as an asterisk to the American story. Creator Hannah-Jones says as President Trump has railed against it. Here's a partial transcript with my emphasis added. CNN, LOL, the 1619 Project is not an attempt to rewrite history about when this nation was founded. If the president had actually read the essays in this, what do you think would be an honest takeaway of what they're about? New York Times, Nicole Hannah-Jones, the 1619 Project is really about giving us a history and the understanding to see how slavery was foundational to America and the way the legacy of slavery still permeates much of our society. But of course, we know that 1776 was the founding of this country. The project does not argue that 1776 was not the founding of the country. But what it does argue for is that we have largely treated slavery as an asterisk to the American story. And this project is trying to place slavery at the center where we believe it belongs. Everything emphasized above, everything CNN, LOL said, everything Hannah-Jones said is a new lie. Let me sharpen this point. CNN, LOL, the 1619, I love how they add that LOL. CNN, LOL, the 1619 Project is not an attempt to rewrite history about when this nation was founded. Hannah-Jones, the project does not argue that 1776 was not the founding of the country. That is what CNN, LOL, and Hannah Jones not only told the country, but it was said within the context that the President of the United States is lying about the 1619 Project. Except both Hannah Jones and the New York Times have explicitly used the 1619 Project to spread the lie America was founded in 1619 on slavery, and therefore America was not founded in 1776. Below, courtesy of Quillette, is a screenshot of the interactive version of the 1619 Project the New York Times published in August of 2019. And here it says the 1619 Project. Now this was August of last year. The 1619 Project is a major initiative from the New York Times observing the 400th anniversary of the beginning of American slavery. It aims to reframe the country's history, understanding 1619 as our true founding and placing the consequences of slavery and the contributions of Black Americans at the very center of the story we tell ourselves about who we are. So they are lying, straight up lying to the American people, saying, no, the 1619 Project doesn't say that that's when the country founded. It most certainly does, you absolute okay, well, I'm not going to say what I want to say, but that is the lowest of the low. What they're doing is they're lying about what they said in order to make it seem as if Trump is lying now about saying that the 1619 Project claims that America was founded in 1619. They're saying, CNN, LOL, and Hannah Jones, who is behind the 1619 Project, have both said that 1619 is the real, true founding of America. So now that Trump has come out and said, no, it's not, and this is what we're going to do to counteract these lies, now they're coming out and saying, well, we never said that. Trump's lying. He's a liar. He's an orange man lies. Orange man bad. Lies. Crazy. These people are getting crazier as time goes on. Here's the text with my emphasis, we just read that. I'm not going to read it again. The New York Times published that. The New York Times came right out and told its readers that the 1619 Project aims to reframe the country's history, understanding 1619 as our true founding. And yet now they're all up in arms. Oh, Trump's lying. We never said that. No, orange man bad. Anyway, and now in a sloppy cover-up, the New York Times is telling a new lie by memory holing the original text of the interactive edition. No more does it say the 1619 Project aims to reframe the country's history and understanding 1619 as our true founding, and nowhere does the Times explain its retraction. Well, why would they? They don't want to draw people's attention to it because they want to be able to go with the narrative that Trump's lying. He's a racist. He's a xenophobe. He's everything, every ist you can think. Sexist, classist, elitist. You know, the list goes on with these people. And they want to be able to say that Trump lied about this. So, of course, they're not going to draw anyone's attention to the retraction. Of course not. That's not the only example of the New York Times lying to its readers about America being founded in 1619 on slavery. Exhibit B below is from the August 2019 print edition. Let me repeat that. The print edition of the New York Times. Screenshot again from Quillette. And it says the same thing, very similar, along similar lines. In August of 1619, a ship appeared on the horizon near Point Comfort, a coastal port in the British colony of Virginia. It carried more than 20 enslaved Africans who were sold to the colonists. America was not yet America, but this was the moment it began. No aspect of the country that would be formed here had been untouched by the 250 years of slavery that followed. On the 400th anniversary of this fateful moment, it is finally time to tell our story truthfully. So, they have this in writing and they have it on the website, but they're claiming, no, we never said that. No, Trump's lying. Yep. And it says, here's the text with my emphasis, but we have already read the text. The New York Times published that told its readers in the print edition that in August of 1619, America began with the arrival of a slave ship. That was the old lie. The new lie is a cover-up of the old lie. The Times has now deleted that passage, and because there's no editorial comment pointing out the change, explaining the change, acknowledging the change, the new lie is that the old lie never existed, because they think we're stupid. In August of 1619, a ship appeared on the horizon near Point Comfort, a coastal port in the English colony of Virginia. It carried more than, okay, well, we've already gone through that. And Exhibit C, the same week, Hannah Jones published her now discredited 1619 project. She used her own verified Twitter account to inform the world that I argue that 1619 is our true founding. And here she is again. She's Ida Bay Wells, and she goes by Hannah Jones. So there she is again. So how they can ever say that they never said that is beyond me. I guess they don't think that there's a record kept on the internet of everything. Hannah Jones believes so completely that America was founded on slavery in 1619. The banner on her verified Twitter account reads like this: July 4th, 1776, crossed out, and August 20th, 1619, put in. So these lying liars lied about America being founded in 1619 on slavery, and after Trump pushed back on the lie, these lying liars invented new lies to smear Trump as a liar using the lie they never lied. Why would anyone read the New York Times or watch CNN? LOL. Well, I don't know who watches CNN. I don't. I mean, honestly, I skip past it to get to the other news. And I do watch Fox News, but I also realize that you have to be careful with that as well. Anyway, utterly baffling to me that people enjoy being lied to, being played for suckers, beyond my comprehension. P.S. Lying race baiter Oprah Winfrey has big plans to spread these lies, the old lies certainly, and probably the new ones as well. PPS, Hannah Jones has her own HBO show now, so don't tell me lying doesn't pay. Well, it does if you're a Democrat. And PPPS, Hannah Jones is so morally warped, she said it would be an honor if the recent riots launched by domestic terrorists in Antifa and Black Lives Matter riots that have burned down countless cities, destroyed countless white and black-owned businesses, and resulted in murder. She said it would be an honor if these riots were remembered as the 1619 riots. PPPS, this shit won a Pulitzer. Yes, she did win a Pulitzer, which I guess it devalues the Pulitzer. Excuse me. All right, well, let's move on now because there is lots to get to. And this I may have to leave because it's a longer, I do believe it's long. Yeah, this is very interesting. And even though it's a bit long, I think we should look at this. It's by Julian's Rum, who is very, very good at Q decodes and so forth. But what he has found is quite fascinating. He says, I think I finally discovered what their ultimate plan for control mass extinction was. It all revolves around 23andMe, Big Pharma, and Big Tech. And oddly, the answer is contained within the pages of Snow Crash, the founder of Google's favorite sci-fi novel. Now, Google co-founder Sergey Brin says these two books changed his life. And this one is Neil Stephenson, Snow Crash. And it says co-founder of Google, Sergey Brin, said Neil Stephenson's acclaimed 1992 novel Snow Crash is one of his favorites. The book was really 10 years ahead of its time, Brin said. It kind of anticipated what's going to happen, and I find that really interesting. Well, I bet he does. But let's go on now, because Julian's Rum has a running thread here, which has some very interesting things. So let's go to number 2. And this is the synopsis of that book that I just mentioned. Snow Crash synopsis excerpt. Lagos search showed that the ancient Sumerian language, and that is actually where Abraham came from, the Chaldees, the Sumerian. It's ancient culture, very steeped in the occult, not Christian at all. Anyway, Lagos research showed that the ancient Sumerian language, and that was the Chaldees language, allowed brain function to be programmed using audio stimuli in conjunction with a DNA-altering virus. Sumerian culture was organized around these programs known as me, which were administered by priests to the populace. Enki, a figure of legend, developed a counter-virus known as the Namshub of Enki, which when delivered stopped the Sumerian language from being processed by the brain and led to the development of other, less literal languages, giving birth to the Babel myth. Well, Babel is not a myth, first of all, and so I take issue with that, but I understand where they're getting to here. L. Bob Reif has been collecting Sumerian artifacts and developed the drug Snow Crash in order to make the public vulnerable to new forms of me, which he would control. The physical form of the virus is distributed distributed in the form of an addictive drug and within Reverend Wayne's church via infected blood. There's also a digital version to which hackers are especially vulnerable as they are accustomed to processing information in binary forms. So that is the excerpt of the book. And it's interesting, this what Julian Rum has found out and what he has connected. So let's go to the next one. And it says 23andMe. We all know what that is. And let me see here. This is from Q. And Q, so we have iris scanners for phones. Now this is April 16th, 2018. And somebody asked, when do we prick our finger and drop blood on the home button to confirm our ID? See where this is going? And down here it says, a Q says, 23andMe. Ann Wojcicki, spouse. Why is this relevant? Well, Ann Wojcicki, I believe, is married to, isn't she married to Zuckerberg? Or is it, I get all these people mixed up because there's been so many names through all of this of the last several years. Anyway, well, the mess in Sumerian mythology were a set of rules and knowledge that made society possible, passed down to humanity from the gods. The wind god Enlil collected the mess and gave them to Enki to distribute only to the main cities of the nation. However, Inanna, Enki's daughter, becomes upset with how little power she has, and she steals the mess and gives them freely to all the people of the world. I think of the mess as software that makes society run smoothly. If that sounds familiar, then you've probably read Neil Stephenson's Snow Crash. There is a list of all the different mess organized by number on their designated Wikipedia page. Of those, the 23rd is currently listed as weapons. So now, I'm not sure exactly, and I've just started to look into this, but from what I understand, now, that is true that the Sumerians, they were very, very in touch with demon entities, and they were known as gods, because even the demons to us are, even though we will be above them once we get to heaven and all that happens. But right now, they are much more, very, very developed, and they have insights and technology from worlds that, they have passed this information down. Actually, the Nazis were working with the demons. Of course, they didn't think of them as demons. They thought of them as ascended masters. I do not believe in ascended masters, but so we do know that the ancient Sumerians were in contact with these demon entities, and they received knowledge from these demon entities, especially in the occult sciences. So anyway, this 23, now I'm a little bit lost on what all this means. I'm bringing it to you, but I'm just in the process myself of fleshing this out. And it's going to take me a bit to do that because I do think that he's onto something here, but I don't entirely get it yet. I am going to order that book from my Amazon and read it and see if that helps me along in my understanding. Anyway, let's take a look at this. So this from Q. Sergey Brin, Google founder, born in Moscow, was married to, okay, so it's Sergey Brin that was married to Anne Wojcicki. So he was married to Anne Wojcicki, and she is the founder of 23andMe, was brother-in-law to Susan Wojcicki, who is the CEO of YouTube, and in kill brackets there, it says DARPA Q. Then, when we come up here, it says the virus is distributed in the form of an addictive drug. And, okay, so then, Sergey Brin, there is also a digital version to which hackers are especially vulnerable as they are accustomed to processing information in binary form. Snow Crash. So this is from the book Snow Crash. And we look here, it says a virus is distributed in the form of an addictive drug. And then here from Q, it says, why is Big Pharma essential? Wow. We may be getting into something really, really deep here. And I'll tell you something, I'm going to follow it through and see what I can find. And then we've got this. There's a digital version, and that's from the book. And it says, think Google, new Pixel phone. Why is Big Pharma essential? Expand your thinking, past cures. Think Apple versus Samsung. Why was BlackBerry destroyed? We can guide, but you must originally uncover the truth. They are watching. Archive everything offline, and that is good to do with everything right now because there are things disappearing like crazy. All right, now come down here, and again, we're on the same thread. So here it says, perhaps someday people will understand they had a plan to conduct another mass extinction event. World War I and World War II orchestrated and planned by select families. Now we know that. Fantasyland, remember, the more people there are, the more power the people have. And this is Sergey Brin, speaking of Snow Crash. It kind of anticipated what's going to happen, and I find that really interesting. So interesting that they had a plan to conduct another mass extinction event, all connected. And let's come down here, and this is the last one, and it says, I found this binary code, so I decoded it, and the text was Sumerian me 23. What does that mean? AC2, sorry for shite picture. And it says this monster did not come from man. So I just got Assassin's Creed 2 recently, and I've been enjoying my first playthrough. I try to hunt down all of the glitched glyphs, and I finally got, I believe, my fourth one. This is one whose puzzle involves searching through a picture to find another picture of what I can only gather are the prophecies on the codex. While looking through the picture, I labeled this monster did not come from man. I found an overlay of binary code in the left side. It was a block of binary code that, when translated, reads Sumerian me 23. On top of the block was just B2. Looking up the code did not give me much. It seems like no one knows what it means. Apparently, one of the glyphs, later called synapses, involves Sumerian numerals, but none of the guides even mention the code or the number 23. I also cannot figure out what in the world B2 means, and neither can my friend, who is more knowledgeable in code than me. I did find out that Sumerian me's are essentially the decrees of the gods. 23 is simply a decree stating weapons or something of the sort. This does make some form of sense since the picture is the first depiction of a gun. I still don't particularly see the reason for the code's inclusion. Well, this is a very, very interesting rabbit hole, and it's one that I hope to be taking a little bit further and look into this because this is some fascinating stuff. Now, here is Julian Julian's Rum again says the book presents the Sumerian language as the firmware programming language for the brainstem, which is functioning as the BIOS for the brain. And says, this is from Q, who controls the narrative? Why is this relevant? What is a spell? What is a spell? And down here, March 3rd, 2018, says where we go one, we go all. Misspellings matter. Sentence formation matters. Learn. Then, what are sheep? Who controls the narrative? The truth would put 99% of people in the hospital. It must be controlled. Snow White, Iron Eagle, Jason Bourne, CIA, Dream, Q. So there's lots of information here. Not sure how to put it all together, but there is something huge here, huge. And it says, according to characters in the book, the goddess Asherah is the personification of a linguistic virus similar to a computer virus. And here's the part where here's the part where I tie two threads together. The Isle of Nabumba is the home of the animals that Asheroth experimented on to make a spell that makes them more human in behavior. Now, I'm not sure what all of this is referring to, but I am really going to have to look into this. There is something, I just know there is something huge here. And it says, and this says D23 celebrates, is that Disney? I don't know. D23 celebrates 45 years, Bedknobs and Broomsticks, the great star of Astaroth. Very interesting. Well, I know this is probably raising more questions than I'm answering at this point, but again, it's just one of those things that there is something here. There is something to this. Now, I don't get it yet fully, but I can assure you that when I do, I'm going to be bringing it to you. And I am going to order, I have to do that tonight before I go to bed, get the Amazon book, Snow Crash, because I would like to read it. Not that I really want to read it, but for investigative reasons, I'm going to. All right, let's move on from here, or I'm not going to get hardly any of this news done. All right. Now, breaking, Seattle City Council overrides mayor's veto, defunds police despite public objection. This is getting bad, folks. Trying to get this out of there. The Seattle City Council voted on Tuesday to override the mayor's veto of a bill to defund the Seattle Police Department, voting again to defund SPD. Mayor Jenny Durkin's veto was intended to stop drastic cuts to a city budget, which would defund parts of the Seattle Police Department budget. Last month, the council passed a revised 2020 budget, including the controversial cuts to the police department, but Durkin declined to allow it to become law. Her action followed pushback from residents, businesses, leaders of faith groups, and minorities against the council's cuts. The Socialist Activity Council had previously pledged a 50% cut to SPD, claiming it would address systemic racism in the department in the wake of the riots in the city following the death of George Floyd. The final cuts were for a lower amount than promised. However, the cuts to the Seattle Police Department will cut over 100 officers from the department and even defund the navigation team, which provides outreach to people living on the streets of Seattle. Mayor Durkin addressed this specifically, saying there's no plan for how the city will address encampments. After outreach initiatives were cut by this budget, encampments have been growing in the city, which were already facing an out-of-control housing epidemic, and now will have no mechanism to address the campers. Cuts to the Seattle Police Department led to the resignation of Seattle Police Chief Carmen Bass, the city's first African-American female police chief. According to a poll taken since the riots began and after the armed occupation of Seattle by activists, over 45% of Seattleites oppose defunding the Seattle Police Department. The majority of those surveyed feel that the cuts proposed by City Council would make Seattle less safe. Well, duh. Yet public comment before the vote before the vote was drastically slanted in favor of defunding the Seattle Police Department, residents reported being unable to get spots to address the council because they were already taken by activists. The mayor has tried to make inroads with the defund movement. She created her own proposals for the cuts, promising over $100 million in grants to community organizations that had participated in the armed occupation in Seattle, as well as unused public facilities to be turned over to the community. The mayor even hired a former pimp. I don't know if you heard about that, but it's wild. Yeah, she hired a former pimp as a street czar to help de-escalate conflicts and violence in Seattle. This after spending over $1 million securing barriers for the armed occupiers of a Seattle neighborhood. Yet this has not satisfied residents, businesses, activists, or activist politicians. The city council refused to consider the mayor's complaint that Marxist city council member Kashama Sawant had organized an event at the mayor's home, giving out Durkin's undisclosed address to the activists who vandalized her home. Mayor Durkin was also named in lawsuits regarding the CHOP and was blamed for Seattle Police Department abandonment of the East Precinct. The Department of Seattle Police Department from their precinct building led to the occupation, as well as the spike in violence and the effect the lawless occupation had on residents and businesses, as well as wrongful death suits for the murderers that occupied in the CHOP. Durkin has also been criticized by the rioters as well as the council for allowing the Seattle Police Department to use crowd dispersal methods such as tear gas and flashbangs. Defund activists have filed a recall effort against the mayor. The pile-on continued today as council members criticized the mayor for her veto of their funding measures and said she was willing to work with them on compromises despite the mayor proposing her own less drastic version of the cuts. So, yeah, what a mess. So let's go on from there because we do have quite a bit to get to. And I wanted to show you this. And this person just simply wrote history books, meaning this is one for the history books. And boy, is it ever. Now, Joe Biden, you've seen the 4 or 5 people that he draws. Well, this is Donald Trump rally. Our great rally tonight in Pennsylvania, tremendous energy, and look at that. Do you think that Joe Biden could draw that many people? Really? And you know, it doesn't matter what venue he has. It's filled to capacity and overflowing. Always. The country loves Trump. The country looks to Trump as their only hope at this point. And there is such enthusiasm for him. If I hear on November 3rd that Trump lost, I don't know, I think I'm going to lose it. Because how could that possibly be? Well, we know how it could be. But, you know, if everything were above board, we know that, I mean, Joe Biden would probably only get like half of 1%. Anyway, let's move on. And let's look at this. Hillary Clinton running her mouth again. Hillary Clinton says McConnell, Trump, move to confirm Ginsburg's successor shows lust for power. Yeah, this is the woman that we want to be lectured by about lust for power. Right. Yeah. Like I said before, it's kind of like a 500-pound overweight woman giving dieting advice to people. Yeah. Her talking about lust for power is laughable. There is no one who has more lust for power than she does. Former Democrat President Bill Clinton and former Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton on Sunday both weighed in on the fight over the seat of the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who was a trailblazer for women's rights and the face of the liberal bloc on the Supreme Court, and Hillary Clinton, yeah, Hillary Clinton, that's right, I said Hillary Clinton, accused Republicans of a lust for power in moving too quickly to confirm Ginsburg's successor. And the sad thing is that she knows how it works. Whoever is the president at the time that seat is vacated through death or whatever, that is the president that gets to nominate the new Supreme Court justice. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked. And Hillary Clinton knows it. So Hillary Clinton was part of a major Supreme Court battle after the death of late Justice Antonin Scalia in 2016. As she ran for president, Senate Republicans chose to hold Scalia's seat open until after the presidential election that year, meaning that Clinton was running with a Supreme Court seat on the line. Now President Trump and Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden should be doing the same, she said. And Republicans are in the wrong for trying to push through a nomination before Inauguration Day in January. Nope, I'm afraid they're not, Hillary Clinton, and it's really sad that we have to explain that to you. Anyway, the decision that Senator McConnell made back in 2016 in the midst of that presidential election, but at a much earlier time when Justice Scalia unexpectedly passed away. Unexpectedly, yeah, murder does that. Murder usually occurs unexpectedly, and pretty sure Clinton had something to do with that too. Anyway, Scalia unexpectedly passed away is what should be the standard now, Hillary Clinton said on NBC's Meet the Press Sunday. She added, Republicans should be held to account for their previous actions. Oh, shut up. I'm telling you, this woman, if I have to hear too much more about her, it really is starting to affect me. Like, really, I can tell that reading all this stuff constantly about what the Democrats are lying about and doing is starting to affect my personality. Really, I feel like I'm losing, something, because I get so angry. I just get so angry. And I don't know, I guess maybe if I didn't get angry, I probably wouldn't be alive, because I don't know how anybody can actually see through what they're doing and not get angry. I don't know how that happens. But, and she said, that's what should be the standard now. Yeah, as if she should be the one to determine what the standard should be. She added, but as you clearly heard, that is not what they are intending. It's another blow to our institutions. Our institutions are being basically undermined for the lust for power. Well, you should know all about that, Hillary. Power for personal gain in the case of the president, or power for institutional gain in the case of Mitch McConnell. Whatever. So I wanted to let you know that is the narrative out there. And remember, I said this is exactly what they're going to do. They're going to make it seem like the Republicans are terrible, terrible people for wanting to fill that seat. And, of course, I don't believe for a moment that Ruth Bader Ginsburg had a last dying wish. In fact, I don't even believe that she just died. Now, okay, you can make fun of me and you can say, that's ridiculous. But I just don't believe that she just died. I just don't. Now, maybe I am completely wrong and crazy, but maybe not. We haven't seen or heard from her for so long, and I don't know. I could be wrong. So let's move on here. And my gosh, let's look at this from Omar. And this from the DC Patriot. Omar says she's going to burn down everything with fuel of my religion. Yes, it's your religion that worries us, Ilhan. It worries us a lot. Minnesota Democratic Republican Ilhan Omar is no stranger to controversy, but in a section of her new book, she seems proud of the things that she does and says. In her new autobiography, This Is What America Looks Like, Omar writes, I am, by nature, a starter of fires. My work has been to figure out where I'm going to burn down everything around me by adding the fuel of my religion, skin color, gender, or even tone. While speaking with the New York Times, Omar was asked, couldn't that kind of language be interpreted as a form of demagoguery? Why is it helpful to express yourself in those terms rather than say in terms of building things up? Omar's response was very telling. It's metaphorical. There are many times when people will say something you said has agitated this space, and it's like, no, it's me just showing up that did that, Omar began. There are times when I will choose to not show up because I know that my presence brings about intensity that isn't going to be helpful, she said. She added, there's no one else that exists in a space where they have to deal with the hate of anti-Muslim, anti-immigrant, anti-blackness, but also with sexism. People say, it's my tone. I'm like, you're agitated by my tone because you think people like me should be sitting in a corner, not heard and not seen. Everything that comes out of my mouth is going to be filtered through the lens of you despising my existence, she added. That's the metaphorical adding of fire. That was a thing in the primary campaign, Omar said. I didn't come to Washington to sit back and stay silent. My community sent me to fiercely fight on their behalf, and that's what I'll continue to do. All right. Omar has come under fire countless times in recent months for making abhorrent comments about the U.S. and Americans. The Minnesota Democrat said it's un-American for U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials to capture and detain illegal aliens. Prior to that, Omar smeared conservative people of faith and insulted pro-life Americans during an off-the-rails speech on the floor of the House of Representatives. During an interview before that on the Nation's Next Left podcast, Omar insulted Trump voters and called them ignorant. While speaking on Capitol Hill late in May, Omar declared this is not going to be the country of white people. Before that, she was swiftly condemned for describing the September 11th, 2001 terror attacks as some people did something. Yes, and I think that infuriated all red-blooded Americans. Yeah. Anyway, let's go on now and let's look at this. I'm not sure if I covered this before or not. Well, no, I didn't, because this is today. It's hot and fresh. Breaking: U.S. mail found in ditch in rural Wisconsin, including absentee ballots. Things that make you go, huh. Yeah. Democrats are stealing the 2020 election. Well, they're trying, aren't they? 2 trays of U.S. mail were discovered in a ditch near Greenville, a rural area north of Appleton, Wisconsin. According to the local officials, the mail included mail-in ballots. The USPS unions support Joe Biden. Says a U.S. Postal Service investigation is underway after mail was found along the road in the Fox Valley. The Outagamie, I'm probably not pronouncing that right, County Sheriff's Office says 3 trays were found in a ditch around 8 a.m. Tuesday. The trays were near the intersection of Highway 96 and CB near the Appleton International Airport. The mail was immediately turned over to the Postal Service. On Wednesday, a USPS spokesman said the mail included absentee ballots. So, that's interesting, isn't it? But of course, the Democrats say, oh no, there's no shenanigans with the mail-in voting. None. No, not us. All right. Well, let's go on. Because we can. All right. Now, let me see here. There's a lot of stuff here, and I want to make sure that I get to the stuff that you need to see. Yeah, this is interesting. Senate report says Joe Biden allowed family to enrich themselves abroad while he was VP. You don't say. I think we're all pretty much aware of that. New Senate report released Wednesday concludes that former Vice President Joe Biden allowed Hunter Biden and other members of his family to enrich themselves through links with foreign companies and governments while he was in office. Now, we knew that as followers of Q, we knew that. So it's good that it's coming out to the general public now, but we actually already knew this. The report notes that the Obama administration was aware of, but did nothing about the conflict of interest that was created when Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, was appointed to the board of Burisma, a corrupt Ukrainian fossil fuel company. But the report goes farther. than what was revealed during the impeachment inquiry last year. It presents email evidence that former Secretary of State John Kerry, whose stepson Chris Hines was one of Hunter Biden's business partners, was also aware of the conflicts of interest. It adds that Hunter Biden, his family, and his business partner Devon Archer received millions of dollars from foreign nationals with questionable backgrounds. It notes that Hunter Biden went on a $100,000 global spending spree with James Biden and Sarah Biden after receiving money from a Chinese investor, and it adds that Hunter Biden appeared to have paid women linked to an Eastern European prostitution or human trafficking ring. It just gets worse. It also notes the records acquired by the committee show consistent, significant, and extensive financial connections among and between Hunter Biden, James Biden, Sarah Biden, Devon Archer, and Chinese nationals connected to the communist regime and People's Liberation Army, as well as other foreign nationals with questionable backgrounds. The report, presented by Senator Ron Johnson of the Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs and Senator Chuck Grassley of the Senate Committee on Finance, was launched in August 2019 prior to the impeachment controversy and as the result of the Henning's transaction, in which a company tied to the Chinese state had bought an American company that makes anti-vibration technologies with military applications. One of the companies in the transaction was Bohai Harvest, RST, BHR, a Chinese-funded investment company in which Hunter Biden owns a stake. The report details examples of extensive and complex financial transactions involving the Bidens and notes that Hunter Biden was not the only Biden who cashed in on Joe Biden's vice presidency. It also notes that Hunter Biden enjoyed Secret Service protection during extensive trips abroad and that the protection continued for a few months after he joined Burisma. It concludes, the records acquired by the committee show that Hunter Biden and his family were involved in a vast financial network that connected them to foreign nationals and foreign governments across the globe. Hunter Biden and Archer in particular formed significant and consistent financial relationships with the corrupt oligarch Mykola Zlochevsky during their time working for Burisma, and their firms made millions of dollars from that association while Joe Biden was vice president and the public face of the Obama administration's Ukraine policy. Rosemont Seneca Thornton, an investment firm co-founded by Hunter Biden, received $3.5 million in a wire transfer from Ellen Baturina, who allegedly received illegal construction contracts from her husband, the former mayor of Moscow. Moreover, Archer's apparent receipt of money for a car from Kenja's, I can't even pronounce this name. But anyway, while Vice President Biden was in Kiev is especially concerning in light of the timing. And finally, Biden and Archer's work with Chinese nationals connected to the communist regime illustrate the deep financial connections that accelerated while his father was vice president and continued after he left office. The report also notes that the vice president was made aware of the conflicts of interest that Hunter Biden's Ukrainian role entailed, as was Secretary of State Kerry. Former Secretary Kerry, December 2019 denial of having any knowledge about Hunter Biden or Burisma is inconsistent with the evidence uncovered by the committees. Kerry was briefed about Hunter Biden, Burisma, and Hines the day after Burisma announced Hunter Biden joined its board. Additionally, Secretary Kerry's senior advisor sent him press clips and articles relating to Hunter Biden's board membership. This appears to be yet another example of high-ranking Obama administration officials blatantly ignoring Hunter Biden's association with Burisma. The reports, written by the Republican majority on both committees, accused Democrats of falsely linking the investigations to foreign influence campaigns. Ironically, the report notes relying on foreign nationals with an interest in influencing U.S. politics. Hunter Biden spoke during the Democratic National Convention, declaring that his father would be an honest president. Well, that is impossible, because to be an honest president, you first have to be an honest person. So, yeah, if he ever got in, we know that the country's gone. He won't even be the one running it. He won't. It'll be Kamala. Absolutely, it will be. and he'll be lucky if he even makes it through. I mean, if he got elected to the presidency, he would be lucky to even see a year in office before somebody wants to take him out so they can be president. I'll just leave that there. All right. Let's take a look at, let's take a look at this. Video, left's arguments crumble as it's revealed Trump has 45 years of precedent for filling vacant Supreme Court of the United States seat, Supreme Court Justice seat, 45 years of precedent. So I'm not going to play this, or maybe I should. I don't know. Hang on here. Let's see how long this is. Yeah, I better not. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know that there's 45 years of precedent. Donald Trump is doing nothing wrong. Here, this just popped up on my Twitter. It says savages in Louisville had truckloads of makeshift riot shields ready to deploy, but FBI Director Chris Wray wants you to believe this is merely a disorganized ideology. Yeah, right. So let's just see what this is.
Somebody put me on this. Let's go. Let's
go. They look pretty organized to me. I don't know. Do they look organized to you? Yeah. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. These people travel around. They are paid. Their hotels are paid. Their food is paid. They're paid to protest, and that's what they do. They just travel around protesting and picking up their paychecks. And, yeah. And then if they get caught, I guess somebody else bails them out. Pretty sad, actually. Now, let's look at this. I found this hard to believe, to tell you the truth, but I do believe it. All right, Pope Francis, God has instructed me to revise the 10 Commandments. Now, this is a new website for me, worldtruth.tv, so I don't know. I have not completely vetted it, but it seems like it's a valid website, not, So anyway, let's take a look at this. Pope Francis kicked off the start of a 3-nation trip across South America today with his first Mass, with over 1 million Ecuadorians in attendance in the coastal city of Guayaquil. Delivering the Mass in Spanish, the Pope spoke about the importance of family in modern society, saying it needs to be helped and strengthened lest we lose our proper sense of the services which society as a whole provides. During his sermon, Pope Francis announced to Christians around the world that God has called upon him, instructing him to revise the most sacred of texts, the 10 Commandments, given to the Israelites by God himself at Mount Sinai. The commandments included instructions for worship and lists several prohibited practices. Pope Francis says Christians around the world are faced with ever-increasing temptations brought on by the evils of modern society. The Pope said that the updated commandments reflect the changing times and include some minor rewording of the existing rules, as well as the addition of 2 new commandments. Now, let me say to you that the Word of God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. It says that there are literal curses upon anyone that adds to those words, which is what he is doing. So I am very, very much opposed to this. I think it is blasphemous, to say the very least. And it offends me greatly. So the 4th commandment, which advocates that proper respect be shown towards one's parents, has been reworded in order to include children raised by same-sex parents. Pope Francis said the 7th commandment, prohibiting adultery and, among other things, homosexuality, has been removed entirely as instructed by God. Oh, right. God told you. That's right. In order to extend God's grace to all his children. Now, let me just put it this way to you. Do you think, I mean, as a Christian myself and a practicing Christian, I believe the Word of God. I believe the Bible is the Word of God. I've studied it extensively. And, you know, do you think that, you know, that God made a mistake the first time and he needs the Pope to correct it? Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. I made an error there. Would you be able to be a dear and correct that for me, Pope? Please. I don't think so. So, addressing the inclusion of the new commandments, which bring the total number to 11, Pope Francis praised the rapid growth of technology in the digital age, but said progress comes at a price. The new fifth commandment, which replaces the prohibition of adultery, forbids all aspects of genetic engineering and bans the consumption of genetically modified foods. Lastly, the 11th commandment disallows personal idolization and the glorification of oneself over God. Using the Kardashians, a highly publicized celebrity family, as an example, Pope Francis said, "Selfies are an abomination in the eyes of the Lord." A spokesman for the Vatican, Father Federico Lombardi, said the 11th commandments are currently being etched into marble by an Italian sculptor and, upon completion, will be unveiled to the world in St. Peter's Square following an internationally televised Mass. I hope that marble cracks from top to bottom. I do. I really do. All right. Well, I bet you weren't expecting to hear that tonight, but let's go back and let's see. Yeah. Now, I'm not going to get into this entirely. This is from yesterday. Trump bans U.S. from doing business with those who promote harmful, far-left, critical race theory. Now, we heard that they were doing away with this, like in the federal government and so forth, but now they're saying they're not even going to do business with people who promote that far-left critical race theory. And I think that's a good idea. President Donald Trump announced on Tuesday afternoon that he has banned the U.S. government from doing business with people and companies who promote far-left critical race theory, noting that the ideology is divisive and harmful. I could not agree more. A few weeks ago, I banned efforts to indoctrinate government employees with divisive and harmful sex and race-based ideologies, Trump tweeted. Today, I've expanded that ban to people and companies that do business with our country, the United States military, government contractors, and grantees. Americans should be taught to take pride in our great country, and if you don't, there's nothing in it for you. So below is the full text of Trump's executive order on combating race and sex stereotyping, and I'm not going to take the time to read it now. It is available. Actually, this is the Daily Wire, so it's available there, but I'm not going to read that executive order, but I did want you to know that it does exist now, and that is a good thing. He's working hard for us. He really, truly is. I've never seen a man work as hard as Trump ever in my life. Now, let's look at, I'm going to save that one for later, and let's come down. Let's look at this. Radical Portland rioters threaten to burn down home displaying an American flag. Couple refuses to take down flag. Can you imagine living in a country now where just displaying the American flag, the flag of the country in which you reside, the flag of the country which you love, can now get your house burnt down? It's unreal. Peaceful protesters in Portland, many of whom have taken their activism to residential areas of the city, threatened to burn down a home for displaying an American flag. The city has witnessed well over 100 days of protests, riots, looting, and arson. In that time, demonstrators have moved into residential areas of Portland. Terrence Moses, a black veteran who runs a nonprofit in Portland, said he observed protesters marching in the streets of his neighborhood. However, the demonstration took a turn after activists noticed an American flag displayed on one of the homes. It went from a peaceful march calling out the names to All of a sudden, bang, how dare you fly the American flag, Moses said, according to the New York Times. They said, take it down. They wouldn't leave. They said they're going to come back and burn the house down. We don't go around terrorizing folks to try to force them to do something they don't want to do, he added. I'm a veteran. I'm for these liberties. The couple that displayed the American flag on their Kenton area home said they were fearful of retaliation from the roving protesters who had found their phone number, according to the Times. Despite that, they were refusing to take down the American flag. I will not take my flag down, the man said. According to the Times, demonstrators also took their protest to the area's commercial district and set fires which residents put out themselves. The same night, the protesters came to the couple's door last month. They marched into Kenton's commercial district and used restaurant picnic tables as fuel for fires. They collected the colorful wooden dividers the neighbors had recently built for outdoor dining and set those ablaze as well. Mr. Moses and others in the community ran into the protests with fire extinguishers. Protests last night broke into the Portland Police Association building and set it on fire. A man was later seen scrubbing the sidewalk graffiti. A popular message was, Portland Police PPB equals KKK, meaning that the Portland Police Bureau is the Ku Klux Klan. According to journalist Andy No, protesters marched through the Laurelhurst residential area in southeast Portland Monday night toward the Penumbra Kelly Police Building, as videos show. While leftist media organizations and liberal lawmakers have been slow to report that extremist factions comprise many of the protests in Portland, the Times admitted that the demonstrators are splintered in Portland between more mainstream Black Lives Matter marches and the more aggressive, sometimes chaotic Antifa or Black Bloc protests. So, Portland is sure going through their hell, and it must be hell to live there right now. It's got to be. All right, let's come back here. And here is a very weird story. Oh, I guess we've already looked at that about revising the commandments. Let me see here. Let's look at this. I know this is going to be one that you're going to go, what? Richard Nixon's unfinished sandwich celebrates its 60th anniversary. Hail to the sandwich! All bow before the sandwich. But unlike those McDonald's burgers that never rot, this lunch has been kept in a freezer. We the people like to process history through anniversaries. For one reason or another, we tend to put special emphasis on how many years it's been since something happened. Not that there's anything wrong with the practice when it comes to big anniversaries. 2020 has some good ones. For instance, this August marked the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II. In January, the World Trade Organization celebrated its 25th birthday. Meanwhile, 2,500 years ago, in 480 BC, King Leonidas of Sparta led 300 warriors against the might of the Persian Empire in the Battle of something. What did you think? What did you think? It was just a movie? Well, I've never even seen the movie, so. But in addition to history shaping wars, 2020 also marks the anniversary of a slightly less significant event. More precisely, 60 years ago today, on September 22nd, 1960, then presidential candidate and later U.S. President Richard Nixon didn't finish his sandwich. It's a momentous occasion for all to remember. Yes, September 22nd, 1960, Richard Nixon did not finish his sandwich. I think boys that don't finish their sandwich shouldn't be president. But that's just me. All right. We know this because an Illinois man... We know this because an Illinois man has preserved the half-eaten bison barbecue sandwich. It has sat in his freezer ever since Nixon walked away from his lunch decades ago. The man in question is Steve Jen, 74, of Sullivan, Illinois. This is his story, his and Nixon's partially consumed sandwich. Hey, a trip down memory lane. But how come Gene came to possess the lunch of Nixon, whose legacy would years later become forever tarnished in the Watergate scandal? For answers, let's accelerate to 88 miles per hour and take a trip back in time. We find ourselves in the city of Sullivan on that more or less fateful day, 9/22nd, 1960. In any case, any Europeans are reading, in case any Europeans are reading this, that'll be 22/9/1960. Don't get too confused now. On this date, Nixon was out on his presidential campaign. He was running against a Massachusetts senator, one John F. Kennedy. As we know from history, a couple months later, Kennedy would win the presidency. Nixon would have to wait until 1969 for his turn in the White House. But on this September day, Nixon was in Sullivan on a campaign trip. For lunch, he was served the aforementioned bison barbecue sandwich. Whether he wasn't all that hungry or just straight up didn't like the sandwich has been lost to history. The facts are that he ate about half of it before proceeding to the park where he was supposed to debate Kennedy. However, Kennedy failed to show up, so Nixon took the chance to give a speech of his own. While he was speaking, Steve Jen, then a 14-year-old Boy Scout, kept an eye on the senator's unfinished lunch. Being the good Boy Scout that I was, I stood there and guarded that sandwich, Jen recounted to the University of Illinois. Eventually, though, it became clear to Jen that Nixon wasn't coming back to clean his plate. I looked around and thought, if no one else was going to take it, I'm going to take it, Jen told Herald and Review in a separate interview. And so he did. The sandwich ended up in a glass jar in the Jen's freezer. From Sullivan, the sandwich eventually relocated to Springfield, where the Jens moved house. When Steve Jen eventually left his parents' home to start a life of his own, the sandwich went with him. In 1988, an aforementioned Herald and Review wrote a story of the sandwich, which at the time was the ripe age of 28. The story went viral, or whatever the 1988 equivalent is, and Jen ended up showcasing his artifact on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. The famous comedian Steve Martin was also a guest on the show that night. Always ready to crack a joke, Martin signed a paper plate he had eaten a chicken salad sandwich off of and handed it to Jen. Probably to everyone's surprise, Jen happily accepted the plate. He still owns it. Let's zoom back to the present day. Nixon's sandwich and Martin's plate are today part of a collection that has been expanded to include scrap food from musicians Tiny Tim and Henry Youngman. Jen said that he wanted to become famous by preserving celebrities' half-eaten snacks. It's just a fun quirk and undoubtedly a great conversation opener. He has enjoyed the opportunities Nixon's unfinished lunch has opened for him, though. In addition to The Tonight Show, the sandwich has brought Jen into contact with other famous people and even an appearance on the I've Got a Secret game show in the 2000s. With the sandwich's 60th anniversary, With the sandwich's 60th anniversary, he hopes that it will draw attention to the Nixon visit plaque in Solomon's Wyman Park. Maybe the city could use some extra tourist income. When it comes to the sandwich itself, Jen has no plans on getting rid of it. As long as I'm living, that sandwich will be stored in my freezer in a container that is labeled "Save, don't throw away," Jen said. And really, why would Jen throw the thing away? It's come in handy enough in the last 60 years, so who knows what tomorrow might bring. Actually, it's election season right now. Wonder what Trump or Biden's lunch would be worth in a few decades. Well, I loved this story because it's just so quirky. So I had to bring it, of course, because I don't know. Have you ever heard of Nixon's 60-year-old sandwich? I hadn't, but I'm glad. I feel much more enriched having known this. Not really, but all right. I think we are getting out of time here. Let me see how long we've been going. Yes, we are out of time. And I'm sorry, I'm playing with my hair in front of the camera, which is really rude. Somebody should do something about that. All right, well, anyway, I think that is it for tonight. I'm going to stop there, but I will see you in the next video. Thanks, guys, so much. You guys that listen nightly, I know who you are. Really, I see the same comments from, or not the same comments, but I see comments from people's names that appear over and over again, and I kind of get to know you guys. So I feel like I know you just like you guys feel like you know me. And I know that you guys feel like you know me because I get your letters and so forth saying that. Saying, you know, I just feel like I know you. Well, I just feel like I know some of you too. And that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. So anyway, thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it so much. And thanks for seeking the truth here with me. Because I know you've got a choice. And so I always feel humbled when people take the time out of their busy day to listen to me. I don't quite understand it, but hey, I have fun doing it. So as long as you have fun and you enjoy the content that I'm bringing, that's good. So good night, guys. Have a wonderful evening. Stay safe, stay well, stay blessed. Good night.